Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we have called us to govern this province. We ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and will promote the interest of the people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat U gedurende ons vergaderings ons die nodige wysheid sal gee en ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat U ons sal help om ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan U op te dra. Sikelela Elizabeth letu nabantu balo. Umusele ukulungu kipondu letu. Kozi sikelela I Afrika. Ina avantwana bayo. Kokele in kokele zayo. Iniki ikolo I Afrika. All this we beg in your holy name. Amen. Please be seated. Before I see the Minister, may I just welcome all the guests on the gallery and remind them that they are not part of the proceedings in the House, so please do not cheer, clap or comment from the galleries. I then see before I see the Minister, I'll ask the Secretary to read the first order.
Introduction and first reading, Western Cape Appropriation Bill, 2019.
I see the Minister of Finance, Minister Meyer.
Honourable Speaker, or Deputy Speaker, Honourable Cabinet colleagues, Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition, Honourable Leaders of other political parties, Executive Mayors and Deputy Mayors, MICO members of Finance today in the House, Chairpersons of Municipal Finance Committees, Honourable Members of the Legislature, as well as members of the NCOP. Welcome, Dr. Dion George, members of the Consular Corps, heads of departments, municipal managers, senior officials of the Western Cape Government, citizens of the Western Cape, special guests, ladies and gentlemen. Honourable Deputy Speaker, this budget consolidates the work of the Western Cape Government over the last 5 years. A budget gives expression to the strategy and the policies of the government of the day. A budget is more than just simply numbers. It is a story of change. Change that affects people's lives. Behind the budget are people, real people with real needs and aspirations. The budget is an instrument to facilitate the journey of change. While a budget is a technical document, it must be informed by both the normative and political dimensions to give the effect to a government's mandate. Our mandate is clear: build an open opportunity society. Central to this mandate is to facilitate choices, give people personal responsibility, and reward excellence. But, Deputy Speaker, a budget must also rally behind a future vision. Therefore, Honourable Deputy Speaker, I table in this House today a budget for jobs, a budget for service delivery, a budget for safety, a budget for the youth, a budget for infrastructure, and a budget for climate change, and a budget for good governance. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we're commenting on the budget is tabled. Commenting on the budget tabled by Minister Tito Mboweni on 20 February 2019, Nick Spoor of the Financial Mail describes the national SONA budget. He said it is not a SONA budget, but it is an ESCOM budget. The state of ESCOM is the state of the South African economy. 10 million people are out of work and unemployed. South Africa is in a period of weak economic growth, a revenue shortfall, and an increase in national debt. State-owned enterprises, Honourable Deputy Speaker, continue to fail because of fraud, corruption, and maladministration. State-owned enterprises continue to drain South African resources. South Africa experienced disastrous load shedding in 2014-15, while the economic cost estimated nationally at 20 billion rand for stage 1 load shedding and 80 billion rand for stage 3 load shedding per month. For the Western Cape, this represented between 3 billion and 8 billion per month and slowed down the upward momentum for economic growth. In response to the Western Cape, established an energy game changer in 2015, whose main purpose has been to reduce our dependence on Eskom and diversify our energy sources with a focus on renewable energy. Much has been achieved, Honourable Deputy Speaker, since 2015. The game changer, together with Green Cape, has assisted municipalities, and I see many mayors and deputy mayors in the House today, has assisted municipalities to put in place a regulatory frameworks that would allow their customers to install rooftop solar PV and receive compensation for extra electricity fed into the municipal grid. In 2015, only 2 municipalities had this legal framework in place. Today, 22 out of the 25 municipalities that distribute electricity have this in place. The generic municipal bylaw and policy guidelines developed in the Western Cape are now being used by other municipalities in South Africa to enable regularized rooftop solar PV installation. This is significant. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Western Cape has actively promoted the installation of solar PV. From 18 megawatts installed solar PV in 2015, Honourable Deputy Speaker, we now stand at 112 megawatt, an increase of over 600%. We have also addressed energy efficiency, Honourable Deputy Speaker, in our own provincial buildings. Since 2015, electricity consumption in our buildings has been reduced by 13%, and our consumption is an impressive 38% below the industry benchmark. And yet, once again, we are faced with load shedding. The Western Cape is now more energy resilient than in 2015, but it would be much more so had the national regulatory obstacles been cleared away. For example, municipalities are currently prevented from purchasing electricity from independent power producers, and their ability to do so have had a substantive material impact on municipalities' energy resilience. In June 2018,
Order.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, in June 2018, the Premier wrote to Eskom highlighting her concern that there was again a significant risk of load shedding and was assured that Eskom was taking the necessary steps to avoid this. On 25th of February 2019, the Premier convened a special provincial coordinating forum to identify the actions that municipalities could take to mitigate further load shedding that may take place. Our analysis suggests that in the next 5 years, there is a significant risk of load shedding owing to a deterioration of coal plant capacity and the planned closure of old coal-fired plants that produce thousands of megawatts. Honourable Deputy Speaker, short, medium and long-term options were presented at the PCF. In the short term, municipalities need to ensure that there is clear, timeless communication on load shedding to customers through their website, social media and other methods. Municipalities have done well to date in sharing this information effectively. There's also the possibility, Honourable Deputy Speaker, that municipalities will be able to procure power from independent power producers in the near future. The City of Cape Town initiated legal action on this issue in 2015, and recently urged the High Court to prioritize it on the court roll. Municipalities need to prepare themselves for such procurement processes in the meantime. Apart from these measures, the Western Cape government is also actively pursuing the importation of liquefied natural gas, also known as LNG, into the Western Cape through Saldanha Bay. It is finalizing a feasibility study, Honourable Deputy Speaker, which confirms that there is sufficient demand for natural gas and that the ability of natural gas will contribute significantly to the competitiveness of growth of our industries. In addition, gas-fired power will be needed to balance out the variability of renewable energy in the Western Cape. The province is cooperating closely with Transnet and national authorities to make LNG importation a reality. Agbare Speaker, ingevolge die geïntegreerde hulpbronplan vir elektrisiteit word ook beoog om steenkoolgedrewe kragstasies teen 2050 uit diens te stel. Die Wes-Kaap is dus geregtig en gereed om onsself te posisioneer vir die vestiging van hernieubare energiebronne, waaronder son- en windkrag, as primêre energieverskaffers in die toekoms. Suid-Afrika, agbare Speaker, en die Wes-Kaap met sy lang kuslyn moet ook windkrag inspan om 'n gebalanseerde energieaanbod teen 2030 te lewer. Wind turbines verg staal, koper, veselglas in die vervaardigingsproses waarvan staal bykans 90% uitmaak. Die hulpbronne benodig in die uiteindelike vervaardiging van turbines bring nuwe areas van werkskepping na vore. Die Wes-Kaap is gereed om in ons provinsie met visie en innovasie weg te beweeg van Eskom se monopolistiese opwekking van elektrisiteit. Dit is in hierdie verband verblywend om te sien dat GRI Renewable Industries, 'n Spaanse onderneming, begin het met die vervaardiging van windturbines in Atlantis. Deur skoon energie op te wek, kan dus 'n bydrae gelewer word om werk te skep. Ons het die getuienis daarvoor. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the most appealing aspect of building our energy resilience is that it also results in cleaner air and new green jobs, and thereby cements our reputation as the green economic hub for Africa. Honourable Deputy Speaker, let me now turn to the fiscal risks. Honourable Deputy, the national fiscal risks remain a matter of serious concern and needs to address as it hovers threateningly over the Western Cape economy. The South African economic landscape requires structural reform with the fiscal crisis in South Africa. This government has assessed these risks and presents the following options to address the national risks. Firstly, we need to substantively reduce the budget deficit. The budget deficit can be narrowed through the increasing of revenue collected by the government or by reducing expenditure. Reducing government expenditure, but be alert to emerging risks and long-term pressures on public expenditure, including an aging population and a rising cost of health and social care. Government should live within its means to prevent occurrence of the budget deficits and an increase in debt to GDP ratios. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we must also limit the debt to GDP. Debt repayments divert funding away from expenditure. The National Minister has recently indicated that we are paying 1 billion rand just on debt in South Africa, 1 billion per day. We must lower our debt burdens to reduce interest payments so that government funds can be used for investment and expenditure on government priorities. Government debt unfairly burdens future generations. We must also limit the exposure of government to loss-making entities. The South African government currently bails out its loss-making public entities using taxpayers' money. Government is in this way effectively subsidizing inefficiency and mismanagement. Well-managed state-owned entities would not require constant bailout packages from the state. Government should consider selling off certain state-owned entities, like the South African Airways, which are not strategically important and whose wholesale would be in the public interest. The advantage of this option is that government receives a capital amount from the sale of the entity and no longer needs to use taxpayers' money to bail out a failed state-owned entity. Honourable Deputy Speaker, South Africa needs to maintain macroeconomic stability. We must ensure strong financial systems that can withstand economic crises that also fosters growth and income. The financial system plays a vital role in supporting sustainable economic growth and meeting the financial needs of citizens and organizations. The financial system should be efficient in allocating resources and should be resilient during the times of severe economic shocks. A strong economy reduces the need for government intervention and transfer payments and leads to lower expenditure. A stable and diversified economy has less exposure to exchange rate fluctuations. Institutional frameworks are needed that will allow monetary and fiscal policy to reduce the ups and downs of the economic cycle in the short term while ensuring sustainability over the long term. We must also enhance trade relations which would allow local industries access to markets more easily. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the policy measures must also enhance economic growth. Policies to enhance productivity would significantly contribute to enhanced growth. Enhanced growth would positively contribute towards growth in national income and would allow for higher levels of tax revenues. This, in turn, would accelerate the return to fiscal sustainability and alleviate pressures in taxpayers, public services, and future generations. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the creation of a productivity investment fund.
Chief Whip,
Can the Minister just deliver his speech without the constant interruptions?
order. I'm listening very carefully to the Honourable Doug Moore. He's making a comment, the very same comment all the time. I think the opportune time for that would be in the second reading. Allow the Minister to deliver his speech, please.
Just
Honourable
address
Doug
you.
Moore.
Could I just ask, would it be possible for
Order.
you to ask a question and then he could answer? Then we'd be sort
Minister, are you prepared to take a question?
question.
I only take questions from senior members of his party.
The answer seems to be no. Minister, you may continue.
We must also create an enabling environment for local businesses to flourish and provide incentives to businesses to be innovative. A more enabling environment, Honourable Deputy Speaker, would include the following: a regulatory environment friendly to small and medium businesses, protection of property rights, tax friendliness, red tape to start a business, and availability of funding business financing. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we must also improve the management of assets and liabilities. I think members of this House will know that the total government guarantees has increased from 477 billion rand to 630 billion rand. We must identify opportunities to dispose of assets we no longer serve a public policy purpose, improve the returns on the assets, and reduce the cost of liabilities which remain on the government balance sheet and reduce the balance sheet risk. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we have seen on the balance sheet that Eskom has already taken up 350 billion rand of the state guarantees. Eskom needs another 100 billion rand of the state guarantees. Honourable Deputy Speaker, these are massive risks, and as the Premier rightly pointed out, can be stopped if we stop corruption in South Africa. Honourable Deputy Speaker, let me now turn to the spending priorities of this government. Firstly, good governance. Honourable Speaker, when the Premier of the Western Cape, Premier Helen Zille, delivered a SOPA address on the 15th of February 2019, she highlighted that for governments to create sustained progress towards prosperity, 3 conditions are required: the rule of law, a culture of accountability in which all members of society take their responsibilities seriously, and a capable state that undertakes its duties efficiently, honestly, and cost-effectively. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the importance of embedding good governance is entrenched in the Western Cape Government Provincial Strategic Plan 2014 to 2019. Honourable Deputy Speaker, good governance is a requirement to achieve the delivery of services to communities in an integrated, sustainable, and equitable manner. It is the basis of building a robust, flexible, and sustainable government. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the journey of good financial governance is a continuous one, It is built on the foundation of adherence to good governance principles and ensuring and maintain governance requirements as prescribed in the applicable legislation. It ensures that the capabilities of people are continuously and optimally developed and that systems and processes are arranged in a manner that enables resilience to external shocks, enables the sustainable achievement of the government's development agenda. Honourable Deputy Speaker, good governance supports and enables the Western Cape government to deliver its core mandate to the citizens of the Western Cape. Honourable Deputy Speaker, it is our commitment to good governance that enables the good story of the Western Cape, a story that highlights that 82% of our budget is spent on the delivery of services to the most vulnerable in our communities. Employment in the Western Cape. Honourable Deputy Speaker, employment in the Western Cape grew by 24.8% between 2009 and 2018, ahead of Gauteng 18.6% and KwaZulu-Natal's 8.8%. Since 2009, we have completed 212,000 housing opportunities and 105,000 housing units are due for completion in the Western Cape by 2022 through a series of catalytic housing opportunities. Today, Honourable Deputy Speaker, 91.5% of the Western Cape households live within 30 minutes of a healthcare facility. This is a key reason why we have the highest life expectancy in South Africa. Over 80% of schools have access to free internet. We have entrenched a culture of good governance and accountability. We consistently receive the highest number of clean audits, namely 83% in South Africa across all departments and public entities. I want to thank all the mayors and the municipalities here because they have also received more than 83% clean audits in municipalities. We have entrenched a culture of good governance and accountability. The President's own office, Honourable Deputy Speaker, through the Measuring Performance and Assessment tool for the past 6 years, confirmed the Western Cape is the top province for good governance in South Africa. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I am pleased to announce that the Provincial Treasury is allocated 1.1 billion to drive the financial good governance in the province. A good governance grant. Honourable Deputy Speaker, for the first time in the history of this Parliament, we are also introducing a good financial incentive grant for municipalities that are performing well, both in the finances but also in the service delivery to its people. And a grant is made available of 30 million rand, is introduced in this financial year, the first in South Africa. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we must be seen to reward excellence, and we are now in the phase of rewarding municipalities that perform exceptionally well here in the Western Cape. Also, Honourable Deputy Speaker, let me now turn to growth and jobs. The Department of Economic Development and Tourism, Agriculture, Transport and Public Works, and Environmental Affairs and Development Planning collectively contributes to the creation of growth and jobs in this province. Over the past 10 years, success highlights include the Western Cape as the lowest unemployment rate in South Africa. Cape Town is the city with the most job opportunities in South Africa, with 14,000 jobs being advertised online in January 2019 alone. Cape Town Stellenbosch is Africa's tech hub, employing 40,000 people, more than Lagos and Nairobi combined. Cape Town is the finance hub of sub-Saharan Africa, overtaking Johannesburg in the 2018 Global Financial Center Index. 70% of South Africa's renewable energy, Honourable Deputy Speaker, manufacturing takes place. Honourable Deputy Speaker, 70% of South Africa's renewable energy manufacturing takes place in the Western Cape, with our country being the fastest growing green economy in the world, according to Moody. Cape Town is also the meetings and events capital of Africa. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I'm glad to announce that an amount of 132.7 million is allocated to support economic growth and job creation stimulus within the Western Cape Province, including an increased support for small and medium enterprises. Over the 2019 MTEF, the Department of Economic Development and Tourism aims to stimulate economic growth in the Western Cape, which will lead to an increase in job opportunities, especially for young people, through an increased support mechanisms in small and medium micro enterprises, mainly in the rural areas such as Bredasdorp, Klein Willem, Hermanus, Riebeekwest, Swellendam, and Calydon. Honourable Deputy Speaker, let me now turn to trade and investment, since foreign direct investment is important to invest in a growing economy. Over the 2019 MTEF, promotion of trade and investment activities within the Western Cape will respond to various markets. Specific focus will be placed on the African market as a key investment and trade destination. The African continent has now 1 billion people, and this is a great market. Honourable Speaker, last Wednesday, the West Crow and the Minister of Economic Opportunities came to the Cabinet last Wednesday, and they showed us the top 10 export markets for the Western Cape in 2017, and they are Namibia, United Kingdom, the Netherlands, United States, Botswana, Germany, China, UAE, Kenya, and Zambia. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we are also continuously cementing our relationships with Indonesia with 260 million people. Investment promotion in the province will be further driven through the establishment of Project Good Hope, which aims to aggressively market Cape Town and the Western Cape as an inspiring and safe place to do business, thereby increasing investor confidence in the one-stop shop Invest SA initiative. Honourable Deputy Speaker, supporting agriculture and agri-processing sectors, the Western Cape Government's commodity approach has led to successful land reform initiatives. It will now also be applied within the commercialization program, which aims to make black commercial farmers self-sufficient and empower 20 emerging fruit farmers towards commercialization. Market access is an integral component for successful land reform and the commercialization of emerging farmers. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Western Cape Government will continue with our international promotional events. Specific focus will be placed on supporting the Sustainability Initiative of South Africa, also known as CISA, as well as the Wine and Agricultural Ethical Trading Association, also known as WITA. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I am pleased to announce that 1 billion rand is allocated towards successful agriculture land reform over the 2019 MTEF for continued market access, which is an integral part of land reform and the commercialization of emerging farms. Honourable Deputy Speaker, this is a significant allocation to the Department of Agriculture since they are doing outstanding work. Honourable Deputy Speaker, let me now turn to Saldanha IDZ and the Atlantis Economic Zone. Honourable Deputy Speaker, over the 2019 MTEF.
Order. Minister, you may continue. Honourable Joseph, allow the Minister to continue.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Over the 2019 MTEF, the Saldanha Bay Industrial Development Zone will continue as a driver of the project Colisa's oil and gas and marine engineering sector, with the first elements of the customized infrastructure of the oil and gas and marine engineering hub in Saldanha Bay. We are also, Honourable Deputy Speaker, keeping a close watch on Mossel Bay, following the announcement of the discovery of oil and gas of the Mossel Bay coastline. The Saldanha Bay IDZ Support Group and Ministerial Mandating Committee will further coordinate enterprise development, education and skills development, enabling infrastructure and other social services. The Atlantis Special Economic Zone will continue to attract manufacturing and service companies in the green technology space. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I am therefore pleased to announce that 156.8 million rand is allocated over the MTEF towards the Saldanha Bay Industrial Development Zone as a key catalytic driver in the oil and gas and marine sector for economic growth within the West Coast District. 96 Honourable Deputy Speaker, this is a project that the Premier started many years ago in terms of Atlanta's revitalisation. And 96.5 million rand is now allocated towards the Atlanta Special Economic Zone for the manufacturing of green technologies and related services. This is a massive investment in this economy. Honourable Deputy Speaker, infrastructure development. Infrastructure development in this province is underpinned by the Provincial Infrastructure-led Growth Strategy as set out in the 2018 Medium-Term Budget Expenditure Framework. I'm therefore pleased to announce that the Department of Transport Public Works, as the key driver of infrastructure development in the province, is allocated 25.2 billion rand over the 2019 MTF towards the construction and maintenance of public works and roads infrastructure, the facilitation of integrated transport services, transport regulation and community-based programs to enhance the livelihoods of the citizens in this province. It is worth noting, Honourable Deputy Speaker, over the past decade, this government has spent 42 billion rand on infrastructure, 22 billion on roads, 9 billion on schools, 5.6 billion on health facilities, and 1.5 billion on library services. Over the 2019 MTF, Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Department of Transport and Public Works will continue to manage the subsidization of the bus operations in Cape Town metro area through the public transport operating grant. Outside the Cape metropolitan area, the implementation of sustainable transport will continue through the George Integrated Public Transport. Honourable Deputy Speaker, a key focus of this budget is a budget for the youth. The Department of Economic Development and Tourism is mandated to oversee the coordination, facilitation, and implementation of skills development initiatives within this province. Over the 2019 MTF, focus will be placed on artisan development, skills for the digital economy, financial business sector skills, and improving the quality of math, science, and engineering qualifications, and developing entrepreneurial skills, especially among the youth. The Apprenticeship Initiative aims to introduce at least 11,300 qualified apprentices into the labour market by 2019 by working with schools, technical and vocational education, colleges, and employers across 5 priority sectors, namely oil and gas, tourism, agri-processing, ICT, and energy. Skills development, Honourable Deputy Speaker and members of this House, is in the rural landscape will be prioritised through the implementation of the Agricultural Partnership for Youth Development, which address inequality in education and skills opportunities for rural youth, specifically children of agri-workers. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the after-school program, the Mass Participation, Opportunity and Access, Development of Growth, the MOD program, is an after-school initiative that provides school-going children, youth with access to sporting, arts and cultural opportunities, as well as curriculum-linked academic support at a school-based MOD centre. The MOD program promotes an ethos of healthy living, lifelong activity, lifelong learning, and greater citizen impact. The number of learners engaged in regular and consistent after-school programming has increased from 14,000 in 2014 to 81,000 learners in 2018-19. Youth cafes across the province provide opportunities to youth who is not engaged in education, employment, and training, also known as needs, to improve their employability and readiness for adulthood. The cafes provide skills development and training on life skills, mentoring and coaching and leadership, as well as entrepreneurship and accredited formal training and job preparedness. Access has been extended to hearing impaired youth, with youth cafe staff undergoing accredited sign language courses since 2017-18. A further 3 youth cafes, in addition to the 11 currently in operation, will be established in 2019-20. These youth cafes will strategically be located in geographical areas within the Metro East, Metro North, and Overberg, Cape Winelands. The Minister of Social Development will make further announcements during his budget speech. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Cape Youth at Work program will continue to supplement the Youth Cafe program. Honourable Deputy Speaker, 7 o'clock this morning, I received a phone call from the Honourable Minister of Social Development speaking excitingly about this Cape Youth at Work program and what this program achieves. Madam Speaker, the Year Beyond program is the academic pillar of the DCAS-led program, which provides volunteer opportunities. Honourable Deputy Speaker, 7 o'clock, the Minister is working. These opportunities expose youth internship, leadership training, and various pathways into employment. To date, 61% of the 2016 cohort of volunteers have transitioned into either employment or studies, and the remainder continue to volunteer. Over the 2019 MTF, 40.278 million has been allocated to the YEBO program. Honourable Deputy Speaker, let me now turn to a budget for service delivery. Health services, the growing population, coupled with increased complexity of ill health conditions presented at public health facilities, continue to place the public health system under severe pressure. I am therefore, Honourable Deputy Speaker, pleased to announce that the Department of Health is allocated an amount of 78.5 billion rand over the 2019 MTF. Included in this allocation over the MTF, Honourable Deputy Speaker, is an additional allocation of 511 million towards managing the increased service load pressures and the health system, given the patient load and the burden of disease. The Health Department is actively engaged in implementing its service strategy, which aims to improve system performance, patient experience, and quality care and life outcomes. Continued investment in terms of health infrastructure and maintenance remains a key to ensure delivery of a dignified public health service. Honourable Deputy Speaker, in addition to the current maintenance budget of 425 million rand has been allocated over the 2019 MTF for capital infrastructure delivery and maintenance at Tygerberg Hospital. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I am pleased to announce that towards the delivery of quality education and the attainment of educational outcomes for learners in this province, the Western Cape government has allocated 75.2 billion rand over the 2019 MTF for education. An additional 1.2 billion over the 2019 MTF has been allocated to accommodate the increasing service load pressures, in the main to respond to the increased demand for teacher and the related support material as a result of the year-on-year increases in learner numbers in the province. Teacher development programs have been prioritized with an allocation of 337 million over the 2019 MTF, with a focus on ICT training and the introduction of the change mindset intervention, which encourages agility in the adoption of innovative learning approaches. Learner performance in maths, science and technology received an allocation of 109 million over the 2019 MTF. This allocation is directed towards teacher training and the provision of the necessary equipment and laboratory consumables to enhance the learning and teaching experience in these areas. Interventions to increase the quality of education and to maximize citizen impact, particularly on learners in poorer communities, include the provision of meals to learners through the school nutrition program and the provision for no-fee schools and fee exemptions in paying schools, fee-paying schools. In addition to existing departmental contributions, 283.1 million rand will be allocated specifically towards the implementation of the e-learning over the 2019 MTF, as well as 23.4 million rand for broadband access to e-education. Honourable Deputy Speaker, early childhood development, very important in this government. The continued expansion for support of early childhood development has resulted in access to these centres to increase it to 76,000 children aged between 0 and 4 years by 2017-18. The quality and access of ECD centres in the province will be strengthened over the 2019 MTF by extending infrastructure, upgrade opportunities and increasing ECD subsidies from 15 rand to 16 rand per child per day. The intent is to extend ECD access to almost 81,000 children by 2022. Over the 2019 MTF, 1.132 billion will be invested in ECD in pastoral care by the Department of Social Development. Honourable Deputy Speaker, let me now turn to safety. This is also a budget for safety. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I am pleased to announce that an allocation of an allocation of 1.1 billion rand over the 2019 MTEF has been set aside to the Department of Community Safety to ensure safer communities, public spaces, and promote professional policing. The department Honourable Deputy Speaker, safety is an important function.
Order.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, safety receives great attention in this budget. The Department of Community Safety, in partnership with local municipalities, will facilitate surveillance technologies to assist the community and the police in fighting crime. In concert with some municipalities, additional funding has been allocated over the 2019 MTEF towards the establishment of a new K9 highway patrol unit to safeguard the main routes of transport against the transfer of illegal drugs and goods. Priority has been given towards the strengthening of research, coordination and evaluation of violence prevention initiatives in communities with high levels of crime and violence through the envisaged establishment of a violence prevention innovation hub. Vulnerable crime areas such as Paarl East, and I see the Deputy Mayor of Drakensberg here, Saldanha Bay, Khayelitsha, Gunya forms part of the provincial whole of society approach where socio-economic variables are taken into consideration before drafting the police needs and priorities. To make neighbourhood watches more professional and efficient in maintaining citizen safety, a monitoring tool has been developed to ensure all accredited neighbourhood watches operate according to the set legislative standards required by the Western Cape Community Safety Act. Accredited neighbourhood watches will further be supported with equipment, training, and improved technology platforms to assist crime-fighting efforts over the MTEF. Improving road and rail safety. Honourable Speaker, I am pleased to announce that the Department of Transport and Public Works will receive an additional 255 million rand over the MTEF to address public transport requirements for rail enforcement teams. Over the 2019 MTEF, the Department of Transport and Public Works will continue with the implementation of the Provincial Sustainable Transport Programme. The deployment of the Rail Enforcement Unit, a collaboration between the Western Cape Government, the City of Cape Town, and the Passenger and Rail Agency of South Africa, has seen an increase in the number of security officials and the reduction in crime on our trains. Just this past week, Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Rail Enforcement Unit collaborated in 6 operations with PRASA, Protection Services, and the South African Police Service. They also made 4 arrests and conducted 1,075 stop and searches. The arrests took place in Bishop Leyvers, Athlone, and Manenberg. Some of the suspects may be prosecuted in terms of the Criminal Matters Amendment Act, which provides a stricter bail conditions and harsher sentences, including up to 30 years imprisonment for those caught and convicted of destruction of essential infrastructure. This is a significant achievement by our colleagues and the various municipalities and Transport and Public Works. Honourable Deputy Speaker, let me now turn to safety in schools. Over the 2019 MTEF, the Safe Schools Initiative within the Western Cape Education has been allocated a budget of 102.5 million rand. In addition to physical school safety, interventions such as the installation of secure perimeter fencing, restricted electronic access, and monitored alarm systems, strategic partnerships between schools and communities are key to providing safety in our schools. Other initiatives which will be given further support include the walking bus program and the Safe Schools Call Centre, which provides support to both learners and teachers regarding matters relating to their services in a range of categories such as abuse, gang activity, bullying, and vandalism. Honourable Deputy Speaker, let me now turn to social development, services for the poor and most vulnerable. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I am pleased to announce that the Department of Social Development is allocated an amount of 7.8 billion over the next 3 years to provide social welfare services to the most vulnerable in this province. Included In these amounts are additional allocations totaling 132 million over the NTF to ensure sustainability of the current services rendered and meet the increasing demand for social welfare services in this province. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Eye on the Child and Bindi programs are two key community-based programs aimed at identifying and assisting children most vulnerable to abuse and neglect. Over the 2019 MTF, the Bindi program will be extended to 2 additional sites in Kalksteenfontein and Nyanga. 590 million rand over the medium-term expenditure framework has been budgeted for service for persons with disabilities. The expansion of services to persons with disabilities over the MTF includes, Honourable Deputy Speaker, improved access to residential care for children with intellectual disabilities, with 30 additional beds to be made available at the Vuile Centre by mid-2019. Honourable Deputy Speaker, let me now turn to arts, culture and sport. Honourable Deputy Speaker, over the past decade, this government has built 53 new libraries and upgraded a further 18 libraries. This has empowered 42 communities in 24 municipalities. The Western Cape holds the highest number of library membership in South Africa, and by far the highest book circulation. Support for major events have increased by 248%. Funding for local sport organizations have increased by 124%, with an average of 120 organizations being supported at the grassroots level each year. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I'm therefore pleased to announce that the Department of Agriculture is therefore allocated 2.5 billion rand over the 2019 MTF towards the promotion of arts, culture and sport in the Western Cape. I think honourable members will know that 10 years ago, the Department of Arts and Culture was about 300 million rand. We are now reaching 2.5 billion rand over 3 years. 242.1 million is allocated specifically and exclusively towards library services in this province. The funding will go towards the procurement of library services, electronic resources, professional library staff, training with a particular focus on connecting rural libraries. In about 10 days' time, Honourable Deputy Speaker, we will also take part in the National Library Week here in this province. Sport and recreation is allocated 677.3 million towards providing sport and recreation activities for citizens in this province. Honourable Deputy Speaker, let me now turn to climate change. Climate change response. The recent severe drought has resulted in water being identified as a major provincial enterprise risk. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I am pleased to announce that in response to climate change, the Western Cape Government allocated 83.9 million towards enabling the promotion and stimulation of the green economy and water resources in this province. My colleague, the Minister of Local Government, Minister Bradell, his department is being central in point for planning and managing of the drought in the province, will support municipalities in the 2019 MTF. The provision of technical and geohydrological services that entails the reprioritization of financial resources towards water augmentation and demand for management services. The provision of professional support and advice with the drilling and testing of boreholes, providing specialist consulting services, which enables the assessment of the current status of water users licenses and assistance in adhering to the license conditions, and the provision of drought relief funding and support. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I want to put on record this government's deep thanks and appreciation for the way in which my colleague, the Minister of Local Government, has addressed this drought issue. It certainly needs a round of applause. Honourable Deputy Speaker, this drought has also contributed to the spate of devastating fires that recently experienced in this province, particularly in the metro, the West Coast, particularly in Wuppertal, Overberg, and the Garden Route areas. The Department of Local Government has been allocated funding in the 2018-19 adjusted estimates to deal with these disasters. Honourable Deputy Speaker, an amount of 5 million rand is allocated to Overstrand Municipality, I see Mercy, and the Meyer, to assist with the fire truck replacement services and costs associated with the fires in Overstrand. The Department of Local Government is also allocated an additional 38.9 million rand over the MTF to appoint additional capacity towards the management of the drought crisis. An additional 25 million rand has been allocated by this cabinet to address the drought-related matters and the exploration of new well fields in the Central Karoo district. The province has also received
Order.
Also, Honourable Deputy Speaker, this province has also received an additional 83 million rand from the national through the Provincial Emergency Housing Grant. This allocation, Honourable Deputy Speaker, this is an important issue as it relates to the programming of this legislature. This province has received an additional 83.773 million from national through the Provincial Emergency Housing Grant. This allocation, Honourable Deputy Speaker, is taken up in the Western Cape Additional Adjustment Appropriation Bill 2018-19, in other words, in the current financial year, which I also table here today in Parliament. The Department of Agriculture has prioritised sound water management as a key requirement to flourish. The Department remains an important stakeholder in the improvement of the Brandvlei Dam Canal inlet and subsequent distribution and usage of additional water capacity to emerging farmers. An additional allocation of 1.2 million in 2019 towards the evaluation of the Western Cape agricultural sector climate change framework and the implementation will contribute to further efficiencies. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Department of Environmental Affairs and Development Planning is allocated 37.219 million towards the development and the rollout of following water security initiatives over the MTF. The Breede River Environmental Resource Plans in collaboration with the key stakeholders, the Berg River Improvement Plan, the Sustainable Water Management Plan. Honourable Deputy Speaker, let me now turn to integrated human settlements. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I am pleased.
Order. Honourable Jainchi, please come to order.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, I am pleased to announce that the Department of Human Settlements, my colleague next to me, is allocated 7.4 billion to continue with the three priorities of the 2019 NTEP, which include more resources to the upgrading of informal settlements and the provision of basic services, increase in affordable or gap housing, and the prioritizing of the most deserving people in relation to the allocation of free breaking new ground houses. Key projects over the 2019 MTF include the Better Living Model on Koradi Hospital site, which is a priority project of this province and bring with it a focus on spatial integration. The Better Living Model is a partnership with the private sector, the Western Cape Government, the City of Cape Town, and has broken ground in 2019 with the development of the site underway. The Biala CBD is another priority project, which is a government-led catalytic mixed-use high-density residential project and compromises various types of residential units and forms of tenure that targets the subsidy market, the BNG, bound subsidy market, flips, and social housing subsidized rental, open market rental units, student accommodation, as well as a smaller number of freestanding open markets. To support catalytic projects within the province, the department is allocated an additional 56.1 million rand over the next 3 years to increase the capacity for catalytic responses and an additional 43 million rand in 2019-20 to be utilized for bulk infrastructure on catalytic projects. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Regional Socio-Economic Project, Violence Prevention through Urban Upgrade. The Department of Environmental Affairs and Development Planning is allocated a budget of 104.8 million over the 2019 MTF towards the implementation and the institutionalization of the Regional Socio-Economic Program. The RCEP VPU program directly addresses the needs of the communities in the province and delivers visible service delivery projects with focus on poor communities. The RCEP VPU program addresses the needs of communities and delivers visible service delivery projects with a focus on poorer communities. The RCEP program is implemented in 7 municipalities: Berg River, Witzenberg, Cape Agulhas, Stellenbosch, Prince Albert, Mossel Bay, Vito, and the RCEP to be rolled out in Saldanha Bay. I see the Mako member of finance of Saldanha, Mr. Venter, Drakenstein, Deputy Mayor of Drakenstein, Menenberg, Hanover Park, and Khayelitsha. Honourable Deputy Speaker, allow me to summarize the Western Cape budget aggregates as follows. Total provincial payments and provisions 2019-20 amounts to 68.338 billion. Total provincial receipts comprise, I apologize, of provincial equitable share amounting to 51.2 billion, conditional grants 12.8 billion, financing amounting to 1.297 billion, and provincial own receipts, Honourable Deputy Speaker, amount to 2.94 billion rand. That's own provincial revenue. Honourable Deputy Speaker, over the last 5 years, this government adopted a good financial governance framework. This government approved a sound fiscal strategy. This government approved a budget principles to protect our fiscus. This government introduced COE ceilings to control the wage bill. We reformed the MTech process towards inclusion and evidence-based budgeting. We used the budget for maximum citizen impact. We rewarded innovation, technology, and partnership. We increased our domestic resource mobilization. We implemented strict financial control over the provincial public entities. We shifted from governance for compliance to governance for results. We took the budget to the people. We used the IGR framework to align our budget to the constitutional mandate and the IDP of municipalities. And we've been able to support municipalities here in the Western Cape. We've been able to respond to provincial disasters. We drove the government's change agenda. But, Honourable Deputy Speaker, much more needs to be done. The journey of change will continue. This budget, Honourable Deputy Speaker, will allow the next Premier to move from good to great. This budget Honourable Deputy Speaker, Honourable Deputy Speaker, this is a budget for jobs. This is a budget for safety. This is a budget for service delivery. This is a budget for the youth. This is a budget for infrastructure. This is a budget for good governance. This budget builds on the legacy of Premier Jan Zille and hands over to the next Premier a financially sound business. Madam Speaker, I would like to thank the Premier Zille and my Cabinet colleagues for their leadership and support during the finalization of this provincial budget. I also wish to extend my gratitude to Mr. Zakaria Hussein, the head official of the Provincial Treasury, the Director General, the head of the Budget Office, Deputy Director General and Fiscal Services, Mr. Eli Malila, and all my staff in the Budget Office. I also like to thank my staff in the Ministry, headed by Advocate Pretorius, Daniel Johnson, Samain de Vos, Linda Jacobs, Leslie Ann Diergaard, Zotwa Mdingi, and Nicolene Hill. Thank you for your support and for keeping the office running so effectively. Honourable Speaker, allow me to also thank my family, my wife, Faiza, for their support. She asked me not to mention that it is her birthday today. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I value the support of my father, my wife and my family. I would also like to thank the chairperson of the Budget Committee and the chair of the Standing Committee on Finance, Mr. Dennis Joseph, and all the members of these committees. I value and appreciate your input. Speaker, it gives me now great pleasure to table the 2019 overview of provincial revenue and expenditure, the overview of the provincial and municipal infrastructure investment, estimates of provincial revenue and expenditure, the Western Cape 2019 appropriation bill, and associate provincial gazette allocations to municipalities, the Western Cape additional adjusted estimates of provincial expenditure, Western Cape additional adjustment appropriation bill 2018-19, that's 83 million, Minister Madikizela, and the associated provincial gazette of allocations to municipalities, and this speech for discussion and consideration by this House. Honourable Deputy Speaker, Minister Windy, on behalf of Premier Zille and this Cabinet, I hand over to you a balanced budget, a stable budget, a sustainable budget, and a budget for growth and jobs. I thank you.
Order. Order. The Secretary will read the bill the first time.
Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
In accordance with Rule 187.1, the introductory speech, the bill and papers laid upon the table will be referred to the relevant committees for consideration and report. The Secretary will read the second order.
Introduction and first reading, Western Cape Additional Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2018-2019.
Honourable Minister, the second order has been read. No, nothing further.
Deputy Speaker, we have received an additional allocation in the current financial year 2018-19 to the value of 83 million rand for the fires that happened particularly in Khayelitsha and in Philippi. I therefore table this second adjustment bill in this House.
Thank you, Minister. The Secretary will read the bill the first time.
Western Cape Additional Adjustments Appropriation Bill 2018-2019.
In accordance with Rule 187.1, the introductory speech, the bill and papers laid upon the table will be referred to the relevant committees for consideration and report. And that brings us to the end of the business of the day. The House is adjourned.
Members, the Budget Committee will meet 10 minutes time. Thank you.